Hello.
Hello.
I can't hear you.
Hello.
Have you heard me at all this entire time?
I can't hear you.
Oh my goodness.
We'll have to start that
You
again.
heard me at all this entire
Whoa,
time?
shush.
Hi, everyone. I was saying Natalie and I were in the middle of this conversation, and then we realized the time, and we're like, "Oh, we need to be here. Let's do this thing." And so, thank you. I can see we obviously need to stop talking at a certain period of time and sit down in front of our computers if we're going to be live at a specific moment, right?
Right. Or just go with the flow.
Yeah, and here we are. That's what we're doing. We're definitely going with the flow. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm AJ.
I'm Natalie.
And we're your host of Soul Wanderings, and we are live on YouTube as well as Facebook on our Soul Wanderings pages. So hopefully you're hanging out with us live in one of those on one of those platforms. That's where we are at and where you can engage in conversation with us because we love or how does it say customer? We love listener interaction. It's so good.
Or we can say on this show, we love our wanderers that
Our
are wandering
wanderers
with us.
that are wandering with us. We really do. We're so grateful. So thanks for being here. We see you guys piling in. Thank you. Thank you. Tonight, we're going to talk about spiritual warfare. So let's get into it. It's somewhat of a heavy topic, if I'm being honest, because it's so real and it's happening right now in this moment. And a lot of people tend to shy away from these heavier conversations. And I feel like they're the ones we ought to be talking about more. And especially right now with everything that's going on in the world. Last week we talked about vibration and frequency. And I think this is a good addition to that because, you know, it's all encompassing.
Yes, it definitely is. I was feeling a breath too when thinking um, about this topic, and definitely warfare. It has a tone to just even that word, which make people just take a breath, or at least it does for me. But it is true, and sometimes it can bring up fear in people. Doesn't have to.
Right. Right. And part of that fear is the spiritual warfare, if we're
Yeah.
being honest.
Yeah.
So, and we'll talk about it. So, spiritual warfare, I mean, it's been going on forever and ever, right? Since the dawn of ages. When we bring religion in, it's God versus the devil or Jesus versus the devil. It's spirituality. It's all about light versus dark. And politics, it's all about red versus blue or left versus right. And it really doesn't matter how you title it. It's all the same. It's a battle for power and control. And we can talk about it each and every way, but there is definitely a spiritual war taking place. And it's all around us.
So yeah, it definitely is.
And not
So
to put anyone in fear. Like, let's talk
no.
about this because by the end of this conversation, hopefully everyone feels empowered.
Right. I was just doing I'm teaching a class on Friday, so I was doing some research on human design and preparing for that class. And in reading some of that material, I came across this section that was on no choice, but it also dove into, so this is a binary. So we are in this binary universe where it's this and that. And so it appears to be sides, just like a coin has two sides, but it's one coin. And also the aspect that we're all one, but there has to be contrast, so that's built into this system. And so it is on a level of consciousness ironic that we fight with each other. It's really ironic because we're the same. We're one. Like there isn't a choice between one or the other. It's all in the same thing. However, when we're in it and we're in this illusion of separateness, then we feel like we're separate. And then that drives this inherent, I'm different than you, you're different than me, we have different points of view, we can't connect. There's this big canyon between people. I heard a conversation today when I was watching some news stuff, and he said it's very difficult sometimes to even have just calm conversation when certain names of people are brought up, if there are personalities out there or people that are in these positions of power or politics, that you mention a person's name or multiple people's name, it just drives a strong reaction. And then so much for conversation about meeting of the minds. I think that's an aspect of this warfare where people literally go to war with people that they love over these things that people feel very passionate about. I'm not minimizing any of those things, but there is not a full picture for any of these things currently that people will react to. So it's head shaking.
Yeah. It's so disheartening. I've had those experiences for myself personally with people I love and hold very dear, and we're just in two different places. And so just even bringing up the topic is like off the table now to preserve the friendship, right? Because we're like,
right.
We can't have those hard conversations apparently if that's going to be something that just adds more negativity, because that negates the purpose of us stepping out of this energy.
Yeah.
The spiritual war energy.
Right.
So I come from an energy standpoint, as everyone should know by now. I work in energy. I feel energy. I know when something's off, and when it isn't. I have a really good way of just like feeling things. And in my design, I'm receptive in all the ways. And so I'm taking things in constantly. And it is a blessing and a curse. But last week we chatted about our vibrations and how those vibrations can work with us or against us in life. So what I'm about to say may be a little bit repetitious when I share that I see this war. So as a war on our frequency is how I see it, on our energy, because the lower our frequency is, as our frequency drops, the more programmable we can become. And it's easier for this darkness to control and manipulate you when you're in that space. And that's the goal after all, right? In so many scenarios, that's what the dark does. They feed off of those lower frequencies and vibrations. And it's interesting when we talked about our vibration calibration last week, and then we decided to talk about spiritual warfare this week, because it's like from one spectrum to another, all encompassing, like I said. But it's my dad's here. Hi, Dad. So I just think it's interesting because we forget. So right now there are many humans, beings, malevolent energies fighting for this control over us, like in every aspect, in every direction that we go, every place that we go. the people that we might be around, they don't want us to remember the great power that we hold inside of us when we remember who we are, right? Because we are like these powerful beings. And in this human experience, we forget when we come here just how we have all of this greatness inside of us. Somewhere along the way, the conditioning or whatever that looks like. So these heavier energies, they want us to hang out in these lower frequencies where they can manipulate us for their best interests. We see it all around us. It's happening right now with the people we know, like you just said, their anger, it's taking over and allowing them to be in this lower frequency of fear. And the dark loves this energy, loves it. It feeds off of it. And so if we remember that we are these beautiful, divine, light beings of authentic love, then the walls crumble. The competition's no longer present, the control, the power, the messaging, it can't penetrate us. We can't be put into boxes. We can't be manipulated. That all of that manipulation that's been going on, we saw just over in the last 5 years, just how there was like this great division of people like complying and not complying, because some people saw and some people didn't see yet and still haven't. And it's not a judgment. It's just an observation that we're being worked on every platform. And when we remember that greatness that's inside of us, we gain our power back. We can't be manipulated. And most of all, they can't feed off of our frequency if we're vibing that high, right? So going back to our vibration again, it's just amazing when you're in a high vibrational state. Who is going to get to you? Nobody. Nobody wins in that space but you. So when we come back to this realization and take ownership over ourselves and claim our own self-sovereignty, if you will, we begin to see lies. We see these dark energies at play, and we no longer participate because now we know it's a choice, and we get our power back because we know it's a choice. Now we know we have the power and can no longer be manipulated. And it makes us our own being, our own person. And when you're your own person, you begin making choices that are yours and not for anyone else, but yours. Like it's your body, your choice, your thoughts, your choice. It all begins to create this ripple effect where you start breaking these old thought patterns, these old behaviors, rewriting stories, not being a victim. You become free.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's so good.
To get there, it requires dropping different baggages, allowing for perspective over time, to understand that to get caught up in too much emotional energy is to invite the chaos, because there really is no truth in emotional energy. There's a lot of energy in emotional energy. And so these are all different aspects, and understanding your own internal voice, like we've talked about multiple times. And I will just continue to say it because it bears repeating over and over and over and over again, that when you know how to listen to the spirit from within, or your inner authority, if we're speaking in human design terms, but there is a place inside each one of us where we can turn to say, does this vibe with me? Because propaganda is not a new thing. It's not. It's been used. Anyone that studied all the wars, there are different aspects that were purposefully driving propaganda to drive a disconnect. I was watching this little blip of Brene Brown, and a lot of people know her recently, and she was saying that that the world will work on, different factions, different perspectives, different points of view, different pundits, different talking heads will work on moving a person or a group of people and dehumanizing them, making it easier to hate or to disassociate from different people because of the stories that can be told about that group of people or this other group of people. And their stories that are told will disassociate people, and you'll can dehumanize them, and then they're no longer the same as you. And then it's okay to hate them. And then that's just the darkness that you're talking about, that the darker forces, the denser vibrations feed on that. Or it pollutes us, even if you don't want to think about us being fed on that energy being fed on. I smile when I think about things like this, because I often say, remember that cartoon Monsters, Inc.?
Right?
Because in Monsters, Inc., they would scare the kids and collect the energy from the scares and the screams of kids.
Yes, but
And
isn't it so awesome at the end
yes,
how they collect their energy from their joy?
yes, and the joy was so much more powerful, which is what you're saying, and what we're saying in this is that don't lose your light, don't lose your light. So
Mhm.
is there a bigger picture? There are, there's always a bigger picture. Even if you want to think about the fact that we're hurtling through space, we're hurtling at this planet moves. I don't even know the speed because I don't have a brain for that kind of stuff. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It's way faster than 200 miles an hour. Way
Yeah.
faster. We're
It's all
hurtling through
relative.
space, so everything's always moving. There's shifting all the time going on. And to trust that there's something bigger, there's a bigger picture, there's something bigger than this. Another perspective to think about as you're thinking about this is you go back. I was asking someone, the subject of grudges came up, which can be an aspect of this warfare. If you will hold a grudge against this person or that person or what someone says or this situation, then they got you.
Mhm.
They just get you. You get to hold that frequency inside of you, and it allows those darker forces to just take up residence and be inside of your energy field rent free. There's no charge for them hanging out in there.
Yeah.
So we were talking about grudges, and this man in my group yesterday said, "Oh, he was." I said, "Oh, holding a grudge is just like, here, hold this bottle forever." And he's like, "Oh, I've been holding a grudge for how long?" I said, "What year was that in? What year?" And he's doing these calculations in his head. It was in 1978.
Wow.
I said, "What year is it now?" 2025. Okay, that's just a very long time.
Mhm.
So it's in one way to say how long people can hold on to a negative something, a difficult situation or an awful thing that happened. The other thing it's to say is that if you go back into those years, if you were alive, life was different then. And you think about, this is one of the things that I wanted to bring up in the serious aspect of warfare. There are people's, places, things that have been at the programming that we undergo, or the propaganda, or the education of things in a particular way for decades, since the 50s or the 60s or before. It's all sewn into the fabric. It's in the way what's chosen in the education system. I'm talking about higher education too. That's long-standing social weaving dynamics that go into these things. That's not just this year. We're talking about decades at work. There are forces at play. The people that are in power, that wish to stay in power, have been going at this thing for a very, 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 very long time. And most of us don't think in that type of times. We think in much more short burst of time, not like 40 years ago.
Right.
Or 100.
Right. it's wild to me that those people know the power that they can take from us. Like they know, but for some reason we don't know until we know, right? We don't understand like the light that is inside of us, and that's what they're trying to take from us.
Yeah.
Um,
Or to
but
keep dimmed, if we want
yeah,
to say it that way. They want us to stay without our light.
right. But the crazy thing is like we are conditioned so much and we are manipulated so much from the beginning of our lives that we just don't even understand like there's any other way but what they tell us. And so we're getting some facts. Okay.
Oh, what is it? 67,000
Charles
miles?
per hour. And Charles says, we are moving at the speed of light away from the center of this universe. Wanderers, thank you for being here. We really love it. We love your interaction and your comments and all the good stuff. Thank you. So it's just interesting to me, like there's this whole dynamic that's always been, and the powers that be on the darker side have always known, but for some reason, the ones on the neutral or the light side just don't know. And is that from outside, that light?
No, I think it's
Oh,
when I move close to
I
my
thought someone parked in front of your window or
right.
something.
That can happen. I think it's when I move close to my camera. I have to work a little bit different setup so it's not so light sensitive.
It's all good. It just your light was showing.
Yes, that's my inner glow.
But this darkness, like it sneaks in. It's just mind blowing how it just kind of creeps in, and we just aren't even aware. And so, as we start questioning things, right, it gives us an opportunity to heal. It gives us an opportunity to do better. It gives us an opportunity to take our power back. How do you know you're experiencing spiritual warfare in your life? Do you have anything specific that comes to mind for you when you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely that?
So I have practiced enough with understanding that, well, like a couple things like flying through my brain right there. But one I'm going to say, one of the things that I know is living my design, my human design. When I'm experiencing frustration, it's a sort of spiritual warfare because I'm being pulled in directions that are not me. So I'm losing myself, caught up in the conditioning or whatever it is. So that's my not self theme, is when I find that myself is frustrated. The other thing is if I'm suffering. So we're not here to suffer, but we live in a world where suffering tends to be sort of the name of the game, but we don't have to suffer. And so that's another aspect for me to notice my form and notice when I'm out of whack. Gives me clues that there's some spiritual warfare going on. I have an interesting story that I just felt off, and I was experiencing a lot of physical pain, and I was having some interactions with a person that I know. And so I just intuitively felt that there was a connection with that person and my physical well-being or lack of well-being. So I know someone that will test, and so tested up that person, and they tested up with a very low vibration rate, very, very low. And which was a bit shocking to me, but that was
Is
so
that because you didn't see the person in that vibration? Like it was a disguise?
probably because I don't see in particular that energetically that way. So some people see people and the vibrations and the way that they are, but the how low the density was. And so that was a bit of awakening to me to say, if we vibrate, so it's how you started the show. If we're vibrating very low, that's when the demons can get in. It's like we open up the doors to that being so low.
Mhm.
And this is from that map of, we have talked about the map of consciousness on the show before, and it's a way of sort of scoring or getting, it's like taking a temperature, a sort of read on where a person is. And on that map of consciousness, that will show an indication of whether you're really getting caught up in the spiritual warfare. So what are the emotions that you're going through? Or are you
Mhm.
feeling neutral about things, or at you peace, or in the level of acceptance? Then those are the times where you're not caught up in the war. You're not
Mhm.
on the battlefield. You're not um, getting bombarded or hit by the bullets or the bombs blowing up and having your life derailed because of the warfare that's going on. There is an ability to walk through a battlefield, which is our planet right now, and not get hit by the bullets or the bombs. And that's what we're talking about, is keeping the vibration high.
Mhm.
And that enables us to be able to do that.
Right.
It's like armor.
It's a good way to put it.
Mm.
Yeah. As far as spiritual warfare and how it can sneak into our lives, I was feeling on this today because of the topic, and addictions came to mind. We see so many people who will numb out from, wanting to feel, or because they had a hard day or whatever that looks like. And they like check out, right?
Right.
Or the addiction sneaks in. There's many other ways. And so that just really lowers your frequency also. But the feelings are really big, like the feelings of guilt and shame and fear and anxiety and even depression. And I know a lot of people will fight with me on this. Depression can be a chemical imbalance to a certain degree, but I also feel like it's a choice. And it's about making steps towards a different result, right? Because uh, depression, there's just so many varying levels of depression. There's also like lack of motivation or passion. When you think about just like being severely fatigued or no motivation, you've really got to remember in those times when your body needs rest to not let your mind go dark,
Right.
and to feel like, like you're worthless, or that you aren't doing what you should be doing. Um, like those mental and emotional attacks, like racing thoughts, or even suicidal thoughts, or even pushing it to self-harm, like all of those things are not you.
No.
Those are not you. That is the darkness trying to take over. Or like even sleep disturbances like nightmares or night terrors, we know those are really in the dark. Gossiping, there's uh attacks on identity, like from others, or even on yourself, like lies you tell yourself about yourself, or relationship conflicts. Like there's a lot of ways that these heavier energies can move into your reality. And before you know it, you're just sucked in, and you're
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of this spiritual war.
Right.
And also, not everyone believes in a higher power, and that's okay. Like we're all here trying to figure this whole human thing out, and that's part of it. But I feel like not feeling any connection to God, source, universe, creator, any of that just kind of puts you in a place of like, what's the point?
True.
And so that also can be a challenge when you're in this war. Like, what are you fighting for?
So when you just said spiritual warfare this time, I I heard it to bring it in the war with our own personal spirit. Like,
Yes.
is your spirit thriving or contorted and struggling and caught up in a vortex of negative,
Mhm.
negative, 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 negative? That is definitely a war for your own spirit. Our soul gets caught up in these vortexes.
Right.
Now, negative thinking patterns. So when you talk about choices, and people might push back on that, I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. It's like, okay,
Well, I mean,
whatever you say.
specifically with
No,
depression.
right, with depression. But then,
Yeah.
it'll be other things that say, okay, so I do understand. Depression doesn't just, anyway, I want to not get caught too much on a rabbit hole, but I do want to say that our thinking patterns are thinking patterns. That means they're patterned over a long period of time. And so it takes some discipline and some continual practice to get in a different direction than the pattern that we've established over a long period of time. And a lot of times it is also where someone will say something, and then that we'll get caught on that, and we'll believe them, and we'll get caught up in a trap. It's a trap. This is another part where I can feel it's all school. We're always in school, right? We're always in school. That was the test.
Always.
That was
We're
the
always.
test.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, that was the test. Did you believe them? Wait, there was something in me that's like, oh, dang it. Okay, we got to go through something like that again. This is the way I make it through. Is like these concepts and way of looking at life actually allow me to not take it too seriously. It's
Yeah.
like, what a movie we're in. That illusion. When they say it's all an illusion, I want you to talk about that a little bit. This all illusion thing. Are you ready to talk
Oh,
about that?
one of my favorite topics. The thing is, from where I stand, the darkness has no power over us because the darkness has already lost. This spiritual war has been going on for a very long time. And the light has already won. The thing is it's a movie being played out. And so the ending has already been written. It already has happened. We're just behind the times. So either we're watching reruns or we had to pause for a minute and we're just getting back to it. So wherever we're at in our human experience, it's all in varying levels of each other. Like, even though we're all here right now, there's dimensionality, there's multiple lives, there's all these different timelines, there's all these things happening simultaneously. But the truth is you feel like you're in a spiritual war right now because you're having all of these feelings, all of these emotions, these experiences, but really it's none of it is real. It really is this I really love saying video game when it comes to life.
Mm-hmm.
Because in video games, and I'm not a gamer, so I've played around and it's fun and entertaining sometimes, but I don't get into it like a lot of people do, and they could probably have really great analogies for this. I don't, so just bear with me. But I feel like, it's like I wish I had my husband here. He would tell me the name. Like, so those like video games where it's so real, like it's like a movie, like you're in
Like
it,
the role-playing
but you've
games.
got it. Yes, and you've got to make these decisions in the moment, and it'll take you down this path, and then you're down that path, and you've got more decisions to make, and it will take you down that path. But if you wouldn't have gone down that path, you would have done this path, and you would have had these different choices. Like, everything literally is this simulation. It's all just little chips and data on a mass computer board of sorts. And not that somebody's up there like the great Oz, you know, it's not like that. It's us. Oh, it's always been us. And every game that we're playing is our very own game. Like we're playing our own, yeah, Maria says virtual reality. We're playing our own game, role playing game. Thanks, Dad. Okay, so exactly. And it's just interesting that we look at computer games and we're like, oh, this is so fun and entertaining. And you're like in it and your adrenaline's going and it's action packed and it's scary and there's people that come in and you build these bonds and then they die and like all of these things that are really happening in real life. So when you relate it to that life to that, it really does take the heaviness and the seriousness out of it, because just like video games, I mean, how many lives do you have? You know, how many versions of yours of the player do you get to be? What was your question?
No, that was actually, I was talking
Okay.
about the
It
illusion.
started going down.
So, no, that you
that's
were
exactly
trucking.
what's happening. And so we go through this whole psychological mind mess up, if you will, when we're brought here and we're told you need to act like this, you need to learn this, you
Mhm.
need to feel this, you need to eat this, you need to do this, and don't do that, and be like this. And our whole lives, we're going through this like a zombie, like someone is controlling our character,
Mhm.
right? We're just the body and they're controlling our character. But when
Right.
you realize you can reach into your pocket, you've got the controller. The controller has always been with you. You take your power back and you play the game for yourself. And I think a lot of people just get lost along the way because they don't realize that that's an option.
Right.
You know, we lose hope, we lose faith, we think life sucks and it's depressing and what's the point? That is not you. That is the darkness telling you how you should feel, how you should think, how you should act. Because when you're in that space, they can control and manipulate you, and you'll never find your controller.
I know, but it takes a bit of responsibility to be in control, find your controller and say, I'll listen to you, but I don't need to take it all in. I don't need to believe it'll be interesting. It's good information for along the way.
Also, a lot of people like the control that are just human beings, right? They like to be in control.
Oh, yeah.
And not so much as like they want to control their people, although that is a thing. They want control over their reality. They
Right.
want to control how people act and react in their lives. They want to control how their room looks like. They want to control how people clean their dishes, like spouses, like you're doing the dishes wrong. Like it's just so crazy. Like they just want to control and manipulate too. And when you take the time to like really dig into your own being and start unwinding that conditioning and the mess that's been created by the powers that be in the back end of this computer game, then you can get unstuck from that reality, and you can free yourself. And then nothing in life is too serious, nothing in life is too hard, everything is possible.
Yes. You get unstuck. I was like, unstuck. Unstuck means just unstuck for the situation, because we do like the drama. We, the collective we, still likes this to
Yeah,
play
a
out
lot of
as
people do like the drama. I mean, when I was young, right, that was entertaining. Let's hear about the drama. Let's be a part of the drama. Now, and I think if someone doesn't want to have an authentic conversation with me, then or like, you know, they want to like be however they are, it's really challenging for me because I realize like we all have stuff going on inside of ourselves,
Yeah.
regardless of what reality we live in. But until you can have an awareness of like where you're at in your life and how you're contributing to this, because we all play a role. We all play a role in this video game and we all enter other people's video games because it's all intertwined. It really does come down to like healing. It really does come down to healing
Yeah.
and getting authentic and having those hard conversations and being around people who motivate you and inspire you to be a better version of yourself and reading that book that is going to teach you something new or remind you of who you are or whatever it looks like. It really does come down to like letting go and surrendering so that you can like take this lens off, if you will, because we're just all kind of bumping into each other until we're not. And as we're bumping into each other, that's when the bad guys the bad guys come out from behind the tree and we have that eek factor and then we're like, oh, now what? And we're having this whole other experience that's taking us out of our not self or taking us out of ourself. And so
Into our not self,
yes.
away from what we're not,
Yes.
whispering and it's so different now in my life than it used to be. I used to struggle so much more. Perspective is. I remember this simple quote that said, "Perspective, use it or lose it." And in my 20s, that didn't make sense. There were times in my
Yeah.
life where these conversations didn't make sense. I would just be like, I don't understand. I needed to crack open
Mhm.
more. And in fact, there were times where I was feel like I was unstitching myself from being too tightly wound. So this is another aspect. If you are too tightly wound, too restrictive, too narrow-minded, too closed up, you can't get in. So there was this
Mhm.
period in my life where I was getting these visualizations to like crack open. This wise woman once told me that a wise man once told her that when you most want to close down, open up. And in that time of my
Yes.
life, I practiced opening my car window. That's what I could do.
That's
Was
good.
okay. I'm going to open my car window when I feel like I want to close down in my car. I'm just going to open my car window. It was a simple thing to
Mhm.
work on this complex but simple topic that says when you most want to close down, open up. That's where the different perspectives will get in, the different ideas, the healing, the light, just like open up, just open up.
Yeah.
Open your arms up, open your aura up, allow these types of things really do shift.
But think about when you were in that space and if someone would have came to you and say, just open up, Natalie.
No.
Just open up.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Why are you making this so difficult?
Oh, yeah, right. I wouldn't. We can only know what we know, and we can't know what we don't know. We're at
So,
various stages.
yeah, do you think there's like a timeline that we chose? Like, I'm going to decide to have an awakening at this age.
I don't know.
Or
It's
do
in.
you think it just happens by circumstance of the people that come into our lives at the times that they come into our lives or the experiences we have when they happen?
So I have heard some things, and in my own personal experience, it feels like it happens when it happens.
Yeah.
That there is no, and I've watched people that have gone through different ceremonies and different gurus and things, and I feel like they're always seeking, but there's nothing to be sought because it's within, like you mentioned. reach inside of ourselves. The controller's within.
Mhm.
There's no guru out there that's going to ultimately wake you up.
Good night, Joe. Yeah, I know that's the thing, right? It's
Right.
us waking ourselves up.
Yes, and I don't know if it's I don't know if it's on some timeline because those things aren't visible either inside the game. When we're inside
But what if
this,
we found the treasure box,
well,
right?
it's there.
I think of Zelda because I did get into Zelda for a while.
Yes.
And you go and find these little treasure boxes and you
Mhm.
open them up and bling, there's
Mhm.
this bright and shiny little coin or gold piece or jewel or whatever. And you're like, yes, I feel like that is life. That is like when we look at the video game, like that's what we do. We find these little treasure chests along the way and they give us little pieces
Yes.
to remind us to connect to ourselves, to our soul, to remember who we are, to remember to drink our water and take care of our bodies. All of these little nuggies along the way.
It's true. And so there's wake ups. There are people will call them Suntories. There's that cracking open. And
Mhm.
then you're cracked open and then you're still in it. So there's
Mhm.
part of that said, yes, we will continue to get the insights. And I feel like that's the part in the darkness when we've talked about surrender many times in my life, those times I can get frustrated and I've forgot it. Not really forgot it, but momentarily lost my light a little bit. I don't shine as bright. There's a song that said, when I walk into a room, I do not light it up. There's been times on occasion I get there and then I'm reminded again. Then there's these little markers and maybe my future self left them for me to
Yeah.
pick up. I
Or
pick up
your
the
other
book
self in another dimension that was
is
like, "Oh,
whispering.
I've got to hurry and go put that over there for Natalie to get because I
Right.
remember when I was at this level of the
Hmm.
game, I wish I would have had this."
Oh, yes. I had a little moment like that today. I was having a conversation with someone and I had a deja vu moment where it was a dream. I remember the dreaming of this dream that was applicable to this conversation today. That I was like, oh, wow. So going back to some of the things that we were talking about, this like, and who's on your shoulder that's talking to you? Is the dark part, that aspect, do I recover quicker from that negative zone that I'm hanging out in? Do I allow this light, this angel on this side, the little passage that I read, the light thing, the remembrance, someone mentioned something, do I allow that to brighten up the room? Or do I just keep and go, okay, you go away, lightness. I
Yeah.
don't want you to love and light me right now. I want to be over here in my storminess and I'm just committed to it. And so the love and the light, you're not going to solve this really stormy day. Because there's
Yeah.
some times where that happens in times like these with people. And
Yeah. Some people want to be stuck in their mess,
yeah,
right? And it's not a judgment. Like
no.
we all have been there. We all have wanted to just be like, I just need to be in this space for however long. And maybe it's even part of their design, right, Natalie?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they have the channel of melancholy.
Yep. Melancholy notes. So you got the channel of struggle, or you're committed to it, or you've got the gate of shock and
Yeah.
various aspects of those things that you're caught up in it. Or
Mhm.
it's in your design and you're a generator or a manifesting generator and you forgot that you weren't supposed to be seeking, that you're living in response and the whole world will show up at your doorstep
Mhm.
in its way. Not the whole
Right.
world entirely, but the world will be, you're calling the world to you and it will show up.
Yeah.
And so shifting to those simple strategies that the human design offers up to a person to experiment with.
Mhm.
It is incredible when I shift into response. And that aspect inside of me that gets all like antsy in my pantsy is like, oh, I got to make something happen. Nothing's happening. It happened to me the other day. It was like, oh, Someone called me. Yay, something to respond to.
There's a question in the chat. What if you feel that you have no control over yourself?
Well, some of the greatest minds and some great teachers have said that there's no choice. So I don't know exactly what it means about no control over yourself. Why would you need to be controlled?
Well, right. We have no control over anything at the end of the day, not even ourselves.
Right.
What will be, will be.
Yes. So
maybe elaborate a little more on that, Mr.
right.
Joe.
So that kind of a question might feel like if I don't have control of myself, then you just can't, like bad habits, or there's a lot of things that it could be from that person's perspective,
Mhm.
but where that question comes from.
Right.
But in a consciousness understanding, at least the way I understand it, it's not trying to control, realizing that you're one little piece of a massive, much bigger picture. We were talking about this other night in one of my groups of saying, this one person, I'm one person on this teeny tiny planet on the outer edge of the one Milky Way galaxy that it's amid all kinds of galaxies. And we're way out on this in the universe, where if we were in the center, there would be so many stars we couldn't even comprehend the level. And maybe that's where we get more darkness, just where we are, where our position of Earth is, where perhaps the higher dimensions or something would be clustered more close to the inner aspects of the galaxy, or the universe, where there's much more stars, more light. Because I was listening to someone talk about this the other day, of realizing this is our position in the universe. But when you take and you understand, at least it's worked for me, to just really feel how insignificant my one little position is. It's my position. It doesn't diminish me. It just gives me the perspective so I don't get all lost in this concept that there's no point or any of those things. It's like, okay, don't get too caught up in the movie.
Yeah.
Don't take it too seriously. Sit back and interact in the movie, in this life.
Or just watch
it. Right. Or just sit
Take a
back and watch it. Yes. Take a break. It's like,
Take a break and
okay,
just watch it.
I'm done for today.
At the end of all of this conversation, as far as spiritual warfare goes, when I was, how I said I felt into it earlier and all of the things that came through, the biggest thing was spiritual deception. Like when you ignore or reject your truth, like you're just not in a war with the darkness, you're in a war with yourself.
Yeah. What would you say when people feel like they haven't forgotten their truth, that this thing is their truth?
What do you mean, this thing? Like they have something they know is their truth and they're like, I'm going to die on this hill.
Yes. Yes. That's a good way to put that.
I guess that would be subjective.
Well, I think that that's an aspect of the warfare, of saying, okay, so someone's going to die on this hill and you're in a different place than dying on that hill. So I think that's where part of what I see currently throughout in the United States, if we just want to bring it to that, where a person's like, it's on this hill. In fact, I was reading a thing on Facebook that said that you've got to take a stand. Got to take a stand. These are the time to take a stand. And I lost it. I thought this would be a good thing for the show, of saying it's now at the time to take a stand and stand up for what you feel is right and fight for it. This is the part of the warfare. Yeah. And if someone is doing that and your inner truth, or you just don't, that's not your hill to die on. Right. I guess that's what we're talking about is knowing within your framework, what is it your fight, or if it isn't your fight, and being able to opt out.
Yeah.
of that particular fight. Because there
I-
seems to be a lot of like, come over and join us. You've got to be on my side, or you're not.
Yeah.
If you're not with me, you're against me.
Yeah. There's definitely that happening. And that is part of the war that's going on. When I think that would be a good indication to me if I witnessed that in another human being, that they obviously had some kind of war going on, not just inside of themselves, but in their environment.
Mm.
It's you know, being energy sensitive is interesting. Now that I'm aware of what it is, over the last several years, and not living the life of just, maybe just being too sensitive, as I've been
Mhm.
told. Um it's quite a teacher. And other people will show you where they're at in life just by the vibration that they hold, right? So if you're around, like, say you're at work and you have someone who's just always complaining and like nothing is ever good enough or happy or anything like that, they have some kind of turmoil going on. If you are, because, when I think of that, I was thinking about my husband and an experience that he has at work with someone who's just like always unhappy. And I'm just thinking, wow, that's got to be exhausting being around that person all of the time. But when you hold your vibration higher, you're able to see everything in a different light.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for us to understand that no matter where we're at in our journey, there's a war going on. And this is not to put anyone in fear, it's just an awareness. There's a war going on all around us. And if you're not paying attention, you can bring that war inside of you. And it happens so easily. And it's exactly what the darkness wants to happen. And so it's really important when you, like Joe, he asked that question, what if you feel like you have no control over yourself? He did follow it up with more control over our feelings and emotions. When you realize, as Natalie will say, your feelings aren't real.
Mm-mm. No truth in them.
There's no truth in your feelings. And I agree with her. When you let those feelings take over, you literally don't have control. Right? Not that you're supposed to, but
there really is no control over feelings and emotions. It's really like the weather.
right.
They
They come and
happen.
they go.
Yeah. That's a fascinating thing for our listeners or anyone listening to this to experiment with, is to fostering the observant mind of
Mhm.
learning how to be an observer of
Mhm.
yourself and
That's
your
where I
life.
was yeah, that's where I was getting to.
Oh, good. See, we're just on the same track.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, like, when you that's the whole thing, is to not let that energy inside of you and just witness it.
Yeah, so I would say, well, from my perspective and understanding of the design and the way that our auras exchange frequency, that the energy will get inside of us just on the regular. It gets inside of us, but not overly identifying it.
Yeah.
And with the greater awareness, you'll understand that the rain will get on your head and it will also dry. That when you get wet, you will dry. So as energies move through us, they move through us.
Mhm.
And so it's saying, oh, this is, to be an energy sensitive, or to have an awareness that the energy, that if you were fine and then you go to the grocery store and then you come away from the grocery store in some sort of way, that it truly is possible that you picked up the energy of someone that was at the grocery store that wasn't okay, because you were okay before. And then, there's these interactions and saying, oh, that wasn't me.
Mhm.
That isn't me. This doesn't feel like me. I'm feeling off. This can belong to the outside world. And you don't have to even intellectually pin it and say, this is where it is to allow it to just move through you
Mhm.
without trying to feel any sort of way is a problem. It's an experience.
Right.
Feelings and emotions are experiences. They're not
And
necessarily
Joe,
problems.
there's no control in
No.
that. So no
That's
control.
just too super attached to it.
Mhm. Well, some people want to have that, right? There are people
Mm.
who want to have a story. They have to be the
Yes.
victim.
Yes.
And they play a role in our experience as well. And at some point in our lives, we may have been the same. And
Oh,
so
I've
just
definitely
having
been there.
compassion and understanding to where they are at and shine your light even brighter. It might make them mad. It does make people mad. I got told this week that my love and light is not going to save the world in so many words. And I was just like, oh, yeah?
I think it will save your world.
It brings me a lot of peace.
That's what I say. Well, I remember one time said I was just going to blast my friend with rainbows because he was so negative. I was like, all right, well, I'll send you 3 positives to your negative. I don't want to dim my light. I don't want to drop my positivity because someone is where they are.
Right.
I can have compassion for where they are, but that doesn't mean I need to be pulled to where they are.
Right.
There's
And
not
that's
where they are.
right. And that's the war. At
That's
the
the
end
war.
of the day, that is the war, you guys. It's
Yep.
a ripple effect. And what you put out into the world, not only will you get more of, you'll also have an effect on other people around you
Mm-hmm.
to be in that same space. Like you will affect them on some level. It might make them mad at first, but people come around and they're like, dang, yeah, maybe.
Isn't it true that the highest frequency wins?
Well, and the truth is the light has already won. So stop fighting it. Stop fighting the dark. It's pointless.
That's right. Just open up the curtains and let the light shine in.
We always have our wanderers. They'll put in song lyrics in the chat. We did have that happen tonight, but then every time I hear that, I'm like, this little light of mine.
That's
It's
right.
just funny. You guys, there was a time in my life where it was very dark, and it was really easy to stay in that space. At the time, that's what I thought. But looking back, I realized how much effort and how much energy and how much life it was taking from me by being in that space. And if I could encourage you or say anything, if you are in that space, to remember that we are all pieces of each other and we all have the same light inside of us. So if you're seeing other people and wishing that you were as happy as them or as have whatever they have going on, you do because we're all pieces of each other. So just don't forget that. Don't forget that the connection that we have. And so when you're carrying that low frequency and letting the darkness in, it's contagious just as much as when you let the light in. And what kind of world and what kind of reality do you want to live in?
Oh, I definitely want to keep it brighter.
Well, you definitely are the bright and shiny light in my life.
I'll do what I can.
And many others. That is for sure. Well, what a fun topic.
That was fun.
It was quick.
The hour just flew by. Look at that.
So next week, we'll fill on a topic that's a little lighter because Although this is a great one, and I really feel like I said we should all be talking about stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's also nice to talk about other things. So if you have a topic that you would like for us to discuss, email us at connect@soulwanderings.com. And if you want to learn more about Natalie and myself, visit soulwanderings.com. And yeah, until next week.
Shine
You
that
good?
light. Yes,
Shine
I'm
that
good.
little bright light.
That's right.
We'll let Maria and Genghis take us out with some music. Let's see. Here's
What do they got?
Maria, this little light of mine. And here's Genghis, if you're watching live on the YouTube. Awesome. Thanks, you guys. It's been fun. We appreciate the love and support. Make sure you guys like our videos and subscribe to our channels because we are new on YouTube and we do want to share with as many people as possible. And we'll see you guys all next week.
Have a good one.
Okay, good night.